Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Not Just New Movies podcast, the show where we review a seemingly random film currently not in theaters. My name is Ben Pearson, and today we're going to be talking about Tommy Lee Wallace's 1982 film, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Joining me is my regular co-host, Tyler. How are you, man?
10 years, buddy. 2010 to 2020. It'll be on our gravestone soon.
This podcast has been running for 10 years. Not continuously,
no, of course not.
But yeah, it has been. I don't know if you could call us pioneers. Probably not, to be fair.
I'm going to.
We were definitely in like that first wave, I think, of podcasting. So, yeah, there's that. And if you're just joining us for the very first time, welcome to the show. You can find all of our previous episodes at njnmpodcast.blogspot.com. And if you would like to contact us, you can do that by email at notjustnewmovies@gmail.com. So it has been a couple of years since we recorded an episode of this podcast. So this is now the third iteration of the show. We did like 100 episodes of the quote unquote normal episodes. And then we did a mini series called Not Just New Movies, The Return, where we talked about movies that had the word return in the title. And now to honor this third iteration of the show, this new batch of episodes that we're planning is going to be about movies with the number 3 in the title, or covering the third entry in a franchise. So, Tyler, do you want to add anything to that? Well,
I was thinking about it last night. Is it the third entry, or is it a movie with the number 3 in the title? Because I can't remember if we decided on, like, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor is the third installment, but it doesn't have the number 3 in the title. So I'm wondering if we live or die by a rule in this iteration.
Yeah, that's an
so we'll have to
question.
look through our episodes and see if 3 is in every single title.
Yeah, and then I guess if just the number 3 is in the title, does that mean that we could also then watch like Naked Gun 33 and a third, or whatever?
Well, just because... yeah, that is the third entry, but I like the idea of a movie with the number 3 in it that isn't the third entry.
Yeah.
So I think initially it was just threequels. So maybe that's the rule right now. Maybe we'll change it over time.
Okay, all right.
So it's definitely a threequel. We prefer to have the number 3 in the title.
Sure, I like it. Okay.
Now, Ben, continuity-wise, where does this installment fall into the 10-year, the very tightly kept continuity that we have of our adventures through the potosphere?
I mean, you tell me. That's I feel like you're the keeper of our adventures through the potosphere.
Well, what have you done since the cancellation of NJNM Return? Wait, NJ.
Not Just New Movies.
The Return JNM.
I don't
nailed
like
it.
That. Well, I think the last episode we did was in 2018, so certainly a lot has changed. I am still working at Slash Film, so you can read my writing at slashfilm.com. I've moved back to Florida, so Second Floor Studios is no more. So if that's what you're getting at, that's the closing of a chapter of our podcasting history. I used to record on the second floor apartment in Los Angeles, and now that place has been returned from whence it came, basically. So
return Jane NM. Now, do you have 2 stories in your house?
I do, but I'm actually
Second Floor Studios reincarnated.
No, I'm recording on the first floor because that's where my office is. So
okay.
I can't extend my commitment to the bit that far, unfortunately.
Well, Ben, since the 5cast was canceled 4 years ago, obviously I've been keeping you up. I became a short order cook. I went on the Weird Al Yankovic music cruise.
Okay.
Crashed onto a deserted island. Discovered that the island itself was a spaceship, so I was hurtled into the outer reaches of the universe. I came mind to mind with some of the space whales we've run into in the past. I transformed into a space whale, and then it was right around that time you gave me the call that NJNM was returning, so I had to space fly back to Earth, and that's about where we're at here.
Tyler, I got to tell you, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
You remember the space whales because it was a timeline that we averted by rescuing ourselves from doing the 5cast.
This is all 5cast lore.
This is 5cast. Well, I mean, we've crossed over with NJNM, so I'm assuming it's one lore.
Okay, so just in
Hashtag
case
one lore.
people hashtag one lore, in case people are listening to this for the very first time and have no idea what this is,
Goodbye.
the five cast was another podcast that we recorded, and you can actually find. I think all of those episodes are maybe still available. Tyler,
Most
is
of
that
them.
right?
Most of
Okay,
them.
yeah. So
The
just
good
search
ones,
for
not the bad ones.
the number 5 and then cast, and you can find it and maybe begin to comprehend what
Unravel.
Tyler is talking about, even though, like I said, I participated in all of this and I am still sort of drawing a blank. But
Yeah, sometimes when we time travel, our minds are wiped.
yeah.
But now that I'm a
Okay.
space whale, I remember all timelines. All
right.
one of the things we talked about on the Fivecast a lot was movies. So obviously, not just new movies. The podcast is one that's close to my heart. And Ben, I'm excited to give the same kind of detailed reviews I've always done for the art of
Yes.
film.
Yes, indeed. All right. So I think we should say that we used to have recurring segments on the show where we would play different games, and there was a segment at one point called the T-Spot where Tyler would just like talk about whatever he wanted for a few minutes. That's basically what's just been going on right now.
I forgot about that. I love that. Bringing the T-Spot back.
So let's, for the sake of brevity, let's skip all of that today and just get right into our discussion of Halloween 3: Season of the Witch.
You don't really know much about Halloween. Halloween, the barriers will be down between the real and the unreal. And the dead might be looking in. The last great one took place 3,000 years ago when the hills ran red. Halloween, the children.
You happen to know anything about this Cochrane?
All I can tell you, mister, is watch out. He's watching you, friend, I guarantee you that.
Trick or treat, trick or treat.
Hey, Mr. Cochrane, just what is the final process?
Fellas, I was just kidding.
Witchcraft. All of us.
Stop it!
Halloween. The world's going to change tonight, Doctor. Happy Halloween.
Stop it!
Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, the night no one comes home.
All right, Tyler. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch came out in 1982. It was written and directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. And this is the first film in the Halloween film series the first and only film to not feature Michael Myers. I have seen the first Halloween, the John Carpenter one, a handful of times, maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. I've seen Halloween 2 only once, and I don't really remember much about it. This is my first viewing of Halloween 3. What is your relationship to this franchise? I know you're a big like horror franchise guy. Is Halloween one of your franchises?
Yes. Try to watch a franchise a year, and then sometimes I'll go back and rewatch entries because they're good. So like Friday the 13th Part 6 is a really good one. I'm really starting to like Halloween, the little trilogy they had, 4, 5, and 6, with and that actually has a lot of Halloween in it. But the third one is always like considered the black sheep, where it's no Michael Myers. It's like a totally different tale. And so I think a lot of fans at the time are like, oh, where's Michael Myers? But now I think it's been a little more appreciated in recent years because it's strange and it has a lot to do with Halloween.
Yeah, it seems to have grown certainly in reputation and become something of a cult movie. I still, I was looking at like Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. Not that is not that anyone should pay attention to that
screw those guys.
in any sort of real way, but I was just curious about like what the, I guess, critical reception was at the time and stuff. And even now, like the numbers there are not terrific.
Oh, really? Is it passing 70? We're talking 70th percentile?
I don't have it pulled up in front of me right now. I don't remember, but let's start with this. Do you think this is a scary movie? Because I would say that the first Halloween, anyway, is a scary movie. I was like terrified of Michael Myers. It's like about real things, and it's like this, even though the shape is this sort of all-consuming figure, it's about like breaking into the suburbs and like piercing the illusion of safety that people have and all that kind of stuff. This movie is it takes a huge left turn from that. Do you consider what happens here scary?
I mean, I definitely, even after this last viewing, I did feel uneasy. I think, is that scary? I mean, I wasn't like scared for my life, but it does have like a sense of uneasiness where it's strange enough where you're like, you might have a weird dream about it, or you might look at things differently. But it's definitely one of those movies that in the 80s that I love because it feels like the whole world is just empty and there's only like 10 people that exist.
Yeah.
And you kind of get like a weird vibe from it where I don't know. There's something unexplainable about how I feel because I'm not scared, but I'm also not like dismissing it as not scary because it is a little uneasy watching it because I don't know, that TV stuff and then bugs and snakes coming out of all kinds of holes. It's not great. Don't feel great during that scene.
Yeah, I was going to say that I don't really think it's a scary movie, but it is disturbing. And maybe that's kind of what you're getting at too, is like, especially those moments. It's really only, I find it to be like intermittently disturbing because this is a very slow and sort of drawn out movie. And it sort of feels like, halfway through the movie, you kind of are, or I found myself anyway, going like, this is a Halloween movie? Like this is part of this, iconic franchise. This is kind of crazy to think about it. It has like more sci-fi aspects to it than, traditional, spooks and stuff like that, spooks and scares. So there's almost like science fiction aspects to this. Like Stonehenge is involved for some reason. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, it's like from the very first credit sequence, it's electronic jack-o'-lantern instead of the traditional farmer's jack-o'-lantern. And so, the technology and the intertwining with mythological Halloween, which really should be called the season of like the Celt or the season of the Irish or something like that. Because I only think the word witch is mentioned once in the when Cochrane is describing what he's trying to do, and Tom Atkins is like, "Oh my God, it's witchcraft." It's like, okay, got it, season of the witch, and that's like the only point in the movie where witches are mentioned when it really should be something to do with like Irish mythology or paganism or something like that. But I don't know, maybe that was supposed to be like a promotional marketing ploy where it's like season of the witch. It's like people will go see it.
Yeah, you think there's going to be a witch involved, and there really isn't one. But there's all sorts of other insane shit instead. Like there's like robots and stuff. Like I was really, I mean, where like lasers shoot out of mechanical computer chips and stuff. Like, you must have been all about this because a lot of that kind of stuff just feels very much up your alley.
Oh yeah, it was definitely like your what's that that nightclub in Terminator, tech-noir.
Oh yeah, tech-noir, yes.
Very tech-noir. And as you'll see in Phantasm, a lot of aesthetic similarities. The yellow goo that fills the robots, lasers, and this attempt to like turn everyone into the yellow goo monsters. So it's interesting to think that I think Phantasm came out like 1978. So I wonder if Tommy Lee Wallace, what's his name? Tom Lee Wallace. Did he assassinate Lincoln? Or is that someone else?
I think that was somebody else.
Yeah, there's like yellow goo in both movies. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay. Yeah, and you mentioned earlier like okay. All right, got that to look forward to.
Yeah.
You mentioned the technology, and I think that point about the opening credits is a really an adept. What's the point? What's the word? An observant point. Like the idea of technology. This whole movie sort of feels about like a fear of technology. Like, this is 1982. This is the same year as Blade Runner. This is like,
Antron.
Right. Yeah. And technology is like encroaching on the American way of life in a way that it never had before. And I have to wonder if this movie is like a way to sort of work through some of those issues, even though, as ridiculous as it is, just like there's a giant James Bond villain layer at the end, and like all these computers with blinking lights, and like you get the sense that like even the people in the movie don't necessarily understand what it all means, and it feels like the idea of like a feed that can infect the world through television is like an idea that's been explored on film before, but like I said, just the positioning of this being in the early 80s, and this new wave of technology on the horizon, it feels like that's really what this movie is like actually about, quote unquote about, if you want to say it's about anything.
I like the town too, the little company town, where everyone's just like stereotypically Irish.
Yeah.
And and like the lone hobo is just like the odd man out. He goes, they wouldn't even offer me a job. It's like, well, first of all, you're a useless drunk. Second, it's just like the hotel. So I was doing like my leprechaun voice the whole time.
I'm glad that wasn't recorded for posterity.
No, it definitely wasn't. But interesting. They made such a big deal about, I don't know if you read up on him, but the guy who plays Cochrane, it's like, Hurley. And I didn't know if he was like a famous actor at the time, because it seemed like he got like a pretty big blurb in the credits. I wonder if he was a breakout star, because I've only ever seen him in this, so maybe he was like a big soap opera star or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't done any research about that. But you mentioned oh, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to say, you mentioned the homeless guy, and that was one of the things I'd written down was like, how insane is it that the doctor, the hero Tom Atkins, just gives him a drink when he asks for it. I was just like, what? That is like one of the craziest things in this movie, is just the idea of like, a strange person approaching you on the street when you've just bought a bottle of alcohol, and this person that you've never met before just being like, hey, can I get a sip of that? And you being like, yeah, sure. Okay.
Now he did preface that he didn't have any diseases. So, I take a man at his word.
Okay. All right. Yeah, fair enough.
You're like a brother to me now. Well, do we do section by section this time around?
We can do whatever you want, man. Let's do it. Let's open it up to however you want to tackle it.
Let's make it so the listeners don't even have to watch this. Actually, I do think the Blu-ray for this wasn't great. It didn't have any like documentaries. I was trying to check out some documentaries on this one, but I'm sure there's like some production stories that would be pretty interesting on this. I know John Carpenter and someone else did the music for it, which the music that commercial is pretty catchy, and I don't like it, which is a shame. But the music is, I don't know, it's very tonal. The like frequency of it is a little, it's probably unsettling, but I think I've used unsettling already.
Yeah. So
I'm just going to say annoying, because it really hits your ear in the incredibly wrong place. And it's not your 5/4 Halloween Michael Myers theme. It's computer generated, but the master of synth, man, John Carpenter, I think this was a miss this time around, and he's done a lot of good stuff.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of a shame. Yeah, it's a shame that this commercial is the thing that is that this movie is remembered for, because I think there is some good stuff sort of like in the actual score of this movie, but that damn song in that commercial just really like plays so many times that it leaves more of a lasting impression than anything that's actually in the music proper,
Yeah. And then we've got Tom Atkins, father of two. I think that's the actor's name.
Yes, it is.
Tim or Tom?
It's Tom.
And he's presumably an alcoholic. And but I wondered if the screenwriter for this had been recently divorced, because the wife is made out to be kind of the villain in the family.
Oh yeah.
And he's kind of like the cool doctor that like sleeps at the hospital and tries to bang everybody.
Yeah.
But I was like, I thought perhaps this was like a Spielberg moment where Spielberg wrote his divorce into the movie. But yeah, he's kind of an absent father, which he's not really a good guy. He's just kind of an inquisitive fella. I don't know
Yeah,
if you got
and
that impression.
yeah, definitely. I mean, he's overly friendly with a nurse, which I
Oh yeah, that was HR. That was HR violation number 1. I
right,
think there
and
were 2.
of many, yeah, and the the woman that he ends up like sleeping with,
Oh yeah.
who's the daughter of a man who I think had his
Oh, the man
head
from the beginning.
crushed or something in the very beginning. Yeah,
Mhm.
she is like way too young for him. Like, it's very strange watching their relationship and just watching and like thinking about this character, this what is his name? The
Tom Atkins.
doctor's name. Yeah, I can't remember his character's name. Daniel, I think it is.
Roger.
We'll just call him Tom Atkins. Just thinking about him as like the center, the focal point of this story. Like, he's just a doctor. He's not a cop. He's not an investigator. He's not a detective. He's just a guy. And like, he, as you mentioned, he's sort of like, yeah, a little curious. And then he goes on this whole, he like stops his entire life for like days on end to solve this mystery or try to solve this mystery. I just found it very strange.
Calls his wife only to cancel.
Yeah.
Seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
No, the guy at the beginning is he was a hardware store owner.
Mm-hmm.
So he had like toys in his store. So I guess he went over to Santa Mira to pick up his order because they won't mail the orders because they're
Santa
spooky.
Mira, the Irish town where Silver Shamrock, this company, is based.
You got that right, boyo.
Yeah. I don't want to go like beat by beat through this movie, but I did write down one thing that happened in the very beginning. So the film opens with this guy on the run, and like already I'm like, all right, I'm in. Like, I don't know who this guy is. He's running from like through this like fog lit night, and there's a car chasing him, and I'm like, all right, I'm on this guy's side. I'm into this. Let's go. And then at one point,
7 days prior to Halloween.
Yeah, at one point,
spook.
he gets trapped by who we later realize are part of this robotic, force that Cochrane has released into the world. And at one point, he's trapped and being choked. And there's one of these robots who's like, leaning over him, choking him. And Harry, the shop owner, is able to pull a wedge out from underneath a car tire and have the car smash into the robot.
Mm-hmm.
But I use the word smash there, and it's really more like loosely slide. Like, that car cannot be moving more than 1 mile an hour, and it crushes this guy.
Oh, he was
in
decimated.
a way where he just like instantly falls over. And like all I could
think of was the GTA Wasted, like flashing across the screen as the car hit him.
Yeah. Okay, so like I said, we don't need to go through all of this, but were there any moments that you wanted to spotlight?
Did you feel there was an underlying theme of 80s marketing towards children being an evil entity, and realizing that, oh my God, every corporation in the world is trying to make money off of little kids.
Yeah.
And it's been kicked up a notch because now they're not just trying to make money, they're trying to sacrifice them for Samhain, the pagan god of Halloween or something like that.
Yeah.
Although if you watch all of the Halloween movies, the idea of, he says he says it like Samhain or something like that, but it's spelled like Samhain, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that comes up into the Michael Myers timeline in later movies. Yeah, like by part 6, he's spoilers for the Halloween franchise, but by part 6, Michael Myers is like a tool of a cult trying to, I don't know, take over the world or something.
I see.
And Michael Myers is just like a soldier in their army.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of negates the fact of how scary Michael Myers is, because you think he's like this, just this evil entity, but then it turns out he's just like a lapdog for this group.
Right.
And I think they used the word Sam Hain at some point, or it's painted on the wall, or Mike Myers paints it on the wall. One of those entries has it where it all kind of comes back to this pagan ritual of Halloween.
Yeah.
So maybe they were like dabbling with that idea initially for 3 and then say, well, I liked some parts of 3. We can work it into later ones. But I do think the marketing theme, especially in the 80s, was probably on the nose at the time.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's a
looking
good point.
back,
I hadn't really thought about that, but I think that makes a lot of sense. Let me just lay out to you what actually happens in like the macro sense in like a couple sentences, right? And just tell me how insane this is, that this is a plot of a major motion picture in 1982. There is a guy named Cochrane who, I guess, in an effort to appease these ancient pagan gods, decides that a massive quelling of human life needs to take place, right? Like a sacrifice on a massive scale. So in order to do this, he, I think we're meant to assume, creates first of all, he fashions an entire career out of becoming like a joke prop guy for some reason, and then becomes the world's #1 manufacturer of Halloween masks. And he then steals a pillar from Stonehenge somehow, and then inexplicably transports that into his James Bond villain lair in this very small town of Santa Mira, which is in Northern California somewhere. And there's no explanation, by the way, of actually how that that whole process happened, that transportation process, because I would love to know.
Magic.
It
was a wizard.
And then, so he essentially scrapes off little pieces of this sacrificial rock at Stonehenge, and I guess somehow inserts them into computer chips, which are then themselves inserted into the Halloween masks that are then sold all around the world. And then Cochrane decides, okay, I'm going to orchestrate what must be a global marketing campaign that begins at least a week out from Halloween, where in which every person who's wearing one of these masks needs to sit in front of the television at the same time. So I mean, we're talking like real appointment viewing here,
right?
And how would Cochrane know when people are done trick-or-treating, what time they go trick-or-treating during the night? None of this is really all of that is glossed over. It doesn't matter.
Time zones.
Yeah, time zones, exactly. But everybody just has to be sitting in front of their TV at one specific moment, wearing these masks, which have these computer chips in them. And then he's going to flash images of pumpkins on the screen, which somehow trigger the chip to blow up the heads of children. And then crickets and snakes explode out of their fractured skulls, and they bite the parents to death. Right?
Well, just that one guy.
Well, that's what happens.
And he went down real quick.
That's what happens in the one time that we see what happens, like the example, and then the movie's ending, which we could talk about in a couple minutes, sort of implies that is what's going to happen on this massive scale. So it's really just about, if you're a parent whose child dies in front of you, and you, I don't know, maybe have a shovel nearby, or some sort of BB gun or something, you could probably just avoid being bitten by the snake that crawls out, and then you'll be fine. But I guess Cochrane is like, this is a numbers game, baby, and I'm sure enough people are going to be dead that Sam Hain will be satisfied. Like, that's the plot of this movie.
Now, here are some questions I have for you that may make you rewatch the film multiple times. Is Cochrane immortal? Do you think he's been waiting 3,000 years to just come up with this scheme? Because he had to have known, like, the long game. He's like, okay, I need to put the masks on the kids. How do I do that? I can't just walk around and I'll become a super toy man. And 100 years prior to this event, and then everyone will want to buy my masks. But then there is that little commercial at the beginning, or it's a news blurb about how the pillar from Stonehenge has been stolen. So, that isn't really an explanation, but it is a nice little, hey, something weird's going on here.
Yeah, he's definitely bided his time until he's, hit this window.
Also, there were only 3 channels on the TV, so there was not a lot that Tom Atkins had to do to stop this from happening.
Right.
Could have maybe called the FCC or something.
Yes.
It wasn't like there were 600,000 channels that this was all running on. So if Cochrane had just waited maybe 20 more years in his immortal life, he would have had everybody. But he spoke too soon, or he acted too soon.
That's a good point. I wonder who, because it was unclear to me who Tom Atkins called at the end, because he's like, get it off the channel, get it off the other
King of
channel.
TV.
Yeah, like who is he calling there? Was he on the phone with the FCC? I don't know.
Yeah,
and then he's like, that the idea that a person, let's pretend he is on calling the FCC. Mm-hmm. He's like, I can't prove it. You just have to trust me.
Say it's a bomb or something.
Yeah, would they actually?
The guy needs a reason to turn off the TV.
I feel like whoever's on the opposite end of that phone call would just be like, this is clearly a crazy person. I'm just hanging up. There's no way that they would actually do it. But let's talk about the ending real quick. He gets in that phone booth. For you. And he realizes that Cochrane's plan is being put into motion, and he tries to call desperately, and they get the Silver Shamrock commercial or special event show or whatever you want to call it.
The big giveaway.
Pulled from the first 2 out of 3 channels. But on the third one, the Halloween image starts to flash, and he's like screaming, like, turn it off, shut it down. And then that's the end of the movie. So
great ending.
What do you think about that?
That's very it's very John Carpenter. Leave it
ambiguous.
Ambiguous is the word I'm trying to think of this early morning. And he did it with Halloween 1. He kind of did it with Halloween 2. And here we go, Halloween 3, third time's the charm. Ambiguous rises again.
This is, I guess, an effective...
What was the big giveaway, Ben, do you think?
Yeah, I have no idea.
A lifetime supply of snakes?
Or crickets for the snakes. You would think that with as many commercials as there are for the Silver Shamrock throughout this movie, the actual end game of this thing would be a little bit more clear, but it's really just counting down the days to Halloween, and that's it. And then they're like, remember, kids, be in front of the TV, and then they don't explain why.
Do you think Cochrane personally approved the Silver Shamrock van to go through the town with its with its megaphones? Those kids need a van to tell them what to do. Also, my final makes you think question: was Ellie a yellow goo robot the whole time?
I don't think so.
Transformed into one?
I think she was transformed into one, or maybe maybe the real Ellie was burned alive in the. I mean, that's dark, but maybe she was killed in the factory explosion.
Oh yeah.
Because it seemed like the idea of her being a robot the whole time. I briefly considered that when I was like, oh wow, she's in the car, and then I was like, this doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, yeah, it would have to mean that Cochrane knew who Tom Atkins was, and that schlub would somehow end him in his whole plans. So he had to send the girl out ahead of time. Yeah, I thought about that too. It didn't make a lot of sense.
I guess going back just a couple steps, like in the warehouse finale, right? The big climax, action scene. How on earth did Tom Atkins know that dumping those chips on the robots would short circuit them, or
He's
that Cochrane? All right, I like it. That's all the answer I need. And I guess the same applies to how he knew that Cochrane would explode, because he's standing like in between the bodies and the Stonehenge pillar, because like this laser just sort of shows up between. I'm like, at
He
that point in the
minored in
movie,
mythology when he was in college.
yeah, I wish the movie was like able to make a little bit of its rules slightly more clear, because I was with it up until that point, basically, where they got to the factory at the end, and even like into some of the factory stuff, like the murdering the family, and like I understood what was happening, even though it is clearly outside the bounds of our real reality. But then just things start happening where it seems like the script needed them to happen, and it didn't. Like the inner logic of the movie was broken to me at certain points during that climax, where I'm like, how does anybody know what's going to happen here? What is the plan? What's happening? I don't know. I was sort of disappointed in the big climax.
I kind of like movies like that where they don't explain stuff to you. It kind of treats me, or it kind of feels like they're treating me like a interpreter of what is going on, instead of like just, how some movies are really bad at exposition, explaining every single detail as to why this is happening so that people don't write angry letters about why did this happen this way. And I think it's been so overdone with the dialogue that to have a movie where nothing is really explained and you just kind of ride the same wave as Tom Atkins' mustache, that you kind of go, I don't know what I would do. I guess I would just, they did say that the little discs, like when the laser shot through that lady's face, and everyone was like, oh yeah, she's fine. Even though she had like the Emotep face.
Right. They were like, it's a misfire.
Yeah. So he heard that, and then he was in the lab late one night and saw that the little pieces of Stonehenge were put on computers. So he knew that there was something like
that could happen.
Yeah, that could explode.
Yeah. Okay. I'll buy that.
But it was fortuitous that he found an entire box of unused ones. If they were like, this is like 5 minutes before the broadcast, you would think all of those would have been out in the kids' faces by now.
Yes.
But they still had like tons that they were preparing. I guess they were going to do it again next year. I don't know.
After the massive, multi-country murder that took place, they were like, all right, gearing up for next year.
Maybe Cochrane thought America forgets so quickly and be like, listen, we've reforged our company motto. We're not about killing kids anymore. We're about giving kids joy. So here are this year's Halloween masks.
Man, that would be
over and over and over again.
Like the darkest commentary of all.
We never learn.
Yeah, man.
There was a story about Ellie, the actress, which, I don't know, this is kind of sad, but I guess she was a teenager, and she was dating a famous director, and I wonder if you can guess who it was. Ben, you have any guesses?
John Carpenter?
No, it's Woody Allen.
Oh.
And
I don't know the story, so it was hard for me to guess.
I thought you were trying to think of directors that have dated minors. I thought maybe you would come to Woody Allen. But there's one point in the movie where Tom Atkins asks her how old she is after they bang, which I don't think is a defense. No. But she says, I'm older than I look, which I don't know if that was a dig at Woody Allen, but it was also kind of sad that she probably was a minor. And but she was good in this. I mean, it was fine. The sex scene was not good, but she seemed to have, I think this was like one of 2 movies famously that she was in. She was probably in a bunch of other movies, but
yes, Stacey Nelkin is the actress's name.
Yeah, I thought she was good. Tom Atkins was the acting. Did you have a problem with the acting, Ben? Any issues?
I had my expectations set very low for this movie, and I would say that they were met. So I guess I wasn't disappointed, because I didn't really think that it was going to be anything that blew me away, and I thought it was all like pretty don't know, like workmanlike, just like very
Yeah.
utilitarian. Like
Yeah.
it did what it needed to do, and that was it.
Yeah, it wasn't over the top, but it wasn't like sci-fi original movie.
Yeah.
I think it harnessed exactly what it was meant to do. And it's unfortunate that, again, fandom demanded Michael Myers' return in Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. And that maybe these ideas that either John Carpenter had or other directors had didn't see fruition, that they would have to come out in some other way instead of using the Halloween banner as a way to get more interesting stories out there in the mainstream.
Yeah,
So,
I really like
know.
the idea of the anthology thing, and I wish it would have worked. But I just don't know if this was the movie that was going to convince people. It's almost like you wish that Halloween 2 never happened, because maybe if this was the second movie, then people wouldn't have had the built up expectation, like having spent 2 movies with the same antagonist and then having that person or that character be abruptly removed. I can understand why people were not thrilled about that. But maybe if this was Halloween 2, then history would be different. I don't know.
Yeah, people are always demanding like Jamie Lee Curtis returns, but what if Tom Atkins returned for Halloween 3-2, where we deal with the aftermath of what may or may not have happened? Like, let's say the event did go down, and now Tom Atkins is living in a 40 years since the event, the giveaway. Maybe they call it the giveaway, and it's like the thing that wiped out like 3/4 of the population, and it's just Mad Max.
The only thing, Tyler, that wouldn't work with that, and I'm surprised we haven't brought this up yet, is that the movie Halloween exists in this universe.
Yes.
Tom Atkins watches it on TV a couple different times, like sees little clips of it. So the idea of him, like, existing in this Halloween 3 world and then crossing over with Jamie Lee Curtis's character, who he had previously watched on TV in a movie.
Wait, you're Jamie Lee Curtis? No, I'm Linda or Laura Stroud.
Laurie, yeah.
Well, I didn't suggest that there was I suggested that it would be Halloween 3-2. It would be a sequel to just this movie.
Oh, I see. I thought you were saying that he show up in the new iterations of Halloween that they're doing, which is like, in 2018, Jamie Lee Curtis reprised her role in another movie called Halloween, and she's going to be in another movie called Halloween Kills, I think. And then like Halloween Ends, I believe, is supposed to be the final one. So I thought you were referring to Halloween Ends as Halloween 3-2, because it's the third, it's the second.
Oh, now I'm back on board.
Halloween movies, but
hey, it's the third one, isn't it? It's like Tom Atkins.
Every single person who is listening to this has turned off their device.
Well, no. Now that we're talking about the Halloween reboot, that's not a reboot. What did you? They came and went before we had a chance to NJNM treat Halloween 2018.
I think that's correct. Yeah.
Did you enjoy that film?
I did. I liked it a lot. I thought Jamie Lee Curtis was great in it, and it sounds like you hated it.
No, it wasn't. I didn't have an issue with Jamie Lee Curtis. It was I think it was my issue that they did like a remake without doing a remake.
It was more of a continuation.
And and this happened in Terminator Dark Fate 2, where at some point she's like, "Oh, you're the new Loomis." It's like, okay, we know we're watching.
Yeah,
it was just very like, I don't know. After watching like 8 Halloween movies and then having to watch that, it felt kind of insulting. But I
think historically you've never really been a big fan of the movie franchise move in which certain things are ignored and then other ones are left as canon. I think historically you've sort of bristled against that concept a little bit.
I mean, I have no issue with it if it's all they need is a big bang, right? So like at the end of the Star Trek movies, they should have been like, oh no, a big bang, and then they rebooted the universe, and then the next movie took place in this new reboot. Like if it kind of like the Star Trek movie 2009 kind of did it okay, where they said, oh, it's a separate universe. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But as far as like, when it's, you like mythology as much as I do, where you kind of have all of this mythology, and then they go, oh, well, that doesn't it. We're not going to use that. We're going to do something different just to make money on this IP. And it's like, okay, well, you're not making film as art. You're making film as money-making Cochrane mask, silver shamrock sons of bitches.
And I mean, I think you and I like appreciate the narrative complexity of trying to stick to something, like,
absolutely.
All right, you've made your bed, now lie in it. Like,
right.
You figure out a way to like make all 9 movies worth of lore fit into a new movie if you want to continue this. And it's very rare that people actually like. I mean, frankly, I think a lot of that stuff would be not very fun to watch because it would be so esoteric and or so exposition heavy, like explaining away things, that it would like drive people away. And I'm sure that's why they don't do it. But I think you and I just like, in our own creative pursuits, which matter to no one, we go the extra mile and like do the thing to make sure that all of it fits. Whereas like, a major multinational conglomerate is not going to like, get into the weeds that far. But
the last movie Jamie Lee Curtis was in was Halloween. Was it Resurrection? And she like broke her back at the beginning. So all they needed to do in the 2018 version was have her like in traction or like in physical therapy, and then you could have just told the rest of the story. She's just been like
little piece of connective tissue.
Yeah, exactly. Just a little bit. It doesn't need to be like self-referential, but just a little bit to be like, hey, yeah, remember when her back was broken? That's fixed now.
All right. Okay. Any other closing thoughts on Halloween 3 Season of the Witch?
I really love that shot with the orange sky and the kids walking by. That's pure Halloween right there.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
watch it just for that.
Yep. Good stuff. I think that's it, Tyler. I think we're coming near the end of.
Whoa, Ben! Did you hear that?
I did. What was that?
That was the great Threegle in the sky. He's flying by to drop off a clue to our next movie.
An eagle that actually had like the number 3. Was that like spray painted onto it, or is that just a natural hair growth, feather growth in the shape of a 3?
I have to admit, I did capture a bald eagle and spray paint 3 on its chest. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, PETA is probably going to be coming after you very soon.
Yeah, I tied 6 clues to its claws to drop every week.
And it's fluttering down, and I just caught one now.
Nice catch, bro.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just a piece of paper that has a quote on it. It says, the film's dream sequences are ingenious, and they feature some remarkable nightmare images and special effects. This is from Janet Maslin in the New York Times.
Ooh.
So
sounds like that's a movie review quote to give our listeners just a little taste of what movie we're going to talk about next time.
Okay, yeah. Well, we'll see if we can figure out this clue. And I don't know.
Although I don't think you have to watch every episode in order. You can watch or listen to any of the episodes out of order. I think you'd be fine.
Right. Yeah. There's no through line here.
There's no strange continuity. I hope
that we know of. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's going to bring us to the end of today's episode of the Not Just New Movies podcast. Tyler, do you want to tell people like where they can find you online? Are you doing anything these days?
No, not really. I told you, was in space for a few years. Mm-hmm. I did have Twitter, so at the 5cast, but it has transformed into Space Whale. So. You can
not necessarily something that you would recommend that people would go to.
No, probably not. Okay. No, definitely not.
All right. We have an old dusty Twitter feed at NJNM podcast. I don't know if we're going to do anything with that, but you can at least follow us there and maybe we'll, resurrect it. Maybe we'll breathe some new life back into that. You can find me at Ben Pears on Twitter and Instagram if you want to follow me there. And I'm also writing at slashfilm.com and occasionally a guest on the Slash Film Daily podcast, the Slash Film Daily podcast, if you want to hear more podcasting stuff there. So,
you guys talking about Halloween 3 this week?
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
I think
great.
This is the only podcast on the entire internet that's talking about Halloween 3 this week, Tyler.
Sweet. I'm getting those Cochrane dollars anytime soon.
All All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you next time.